Okay, so we have a good number to start with. Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon. Thank you guys for joining us today at the Next Steps Career Exploration Conference. This annual conference is important because we provide our students with a preview of the unique journeys of those from diverse industries. I'm Ruben Johnson, the Co-op's Communications Associate. And speaking on behalf of the organization, we are so excited to be having this chat with you too. This panel centers sports and entertainment industries, which are two separate industries, but they have a lot in common. Sports is a type of entertainment, just like the movies, and careers in these fields go beyond the players and actors. There are careers for coaching, writing, marketing, editing, physical health support, and so much more. Can you two, thank you again for joining. Thank you. Introduce yourselves and tell us what part of the industry you occupy.
Who's going first?
Dive in.
I'll go first. My name is Donald Davis. I'm the head football coach at Sidwell Friends. I also coach track and field as well. I've been coaching for 21 years. I've coached in both Maryland and DC, in college and in high school and in middle school.
And hi, everyone. My name is Mashonda Miles, and I am in both. I take up space in both spectrums. I am a model and model primarily with QVC as one of my largest clients. And I also just started a podcast for triathletes called Try Beginner's Luck. So I'm on both ends of the spectrum. I'm a triathlete and just recently started a podcast. So I kind of take up space in both fields.
So for you both, was the journey to get where you are like a straight path, or were there like zigzags and roundabouts that got you there?
I would say mine is zigzag, might be putting it mildly. When I went to college initially, I wanted to be an attorney. I got myself all the way to where, like, literally preparing for the LSAT, getting ready to go to law school. And I did a set of internships, one for the Public Defender's Office of Baltimore, and then one for the state's Public Defender's Office, and then another for a private attorney. And after doing those three, I realized that was not what I wanted to do. And yet I was like 3/4 of the way through undergraduate and ready to go to grad school. And then I changed directions, pushing me into education, which is really what I wanted to do. I wanted to help people and help kids primarily. So I would say this was not a straight shot in, but ultimately exactly where I wanted to be.
And like Donald just mentioned, zigzag is definitely a mild way to put it. As an entrepreneur, for me, it's a constant zigzag. And I went to school, graduated from college, went to grad school, and thought I was going to be this great business executive, right? Like, I want to be making, money moves, as they say, want to be making those real intense decisions and making, just being in business. However, that looks very different for me. I'm still in business. And being an entrepreneur, you have your ups and your downs. And I feel like based off of people telling me what I should have done, it's like, oh, you should totally model. I was like, I'm too old to do this. And it just happened. And so I've been doing it ever since. And it's been one of the best decisions I've made. I'm not going to say that it's not easy, but I still get to do something I love on the business side. And that's kind of where Try Beginner's Luck has come in. And I still help people in business consulting. So I still get my dabs and feels of being able to use the right brain, but I also use the left as well.
And was there anyone that kind of like guided you into the fold, or maybe like a mentor-mentee relationship, or how did you acclimate in?
You want to go first?
Yeah, I'll answer that. Thank you. No, I've been literally doing it on my own, trial by error, failing forward. I told my agents earlier this year, I was like, listen, I don't know what I'm doing and I need you guys to guide me. I need your help. Like, if I want to kind of make, bigger opportunities and have bigger opportunities, I need more guidance. But a lot of times people think you know what you're doing because you present yourself well. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Like if you present well, you look well, people don't really automatically assume that you need the help. But when I do have questions, I do try to send people aside and ask them. However, in the entertainment industry of modeling that I'm in, it's very difficult because people think that you're charting on their territory. And when you're charting on their territory, they're not as eager to help you or assist you. So you have to learn how to hear what they're saying and take the good out of it and flush the things that aren't so good, because people will tell you a little bit of what's good and add their little mix onto it. So I think for me, I've just learned to kind of just trial by error and ask questions along the way to people who I feel like I can trust, even though you can't technically trust people in this industry.
I guess my turn. I was really blessed. Hold on, maybe that's the lighting works better without the hat. I was really blessed. I had a college football coach who I went to and sort of confided in about the area that I wanted to move my life in. And he was outstanding with just sort of helping me with understanding what I would need to get started. And then really sort of the thing that thrust me into education was I went to our dean to talk to her to say, hey, like, I'm not really sure how to make such a switch so late. And she reminded me that she was an educator. And, I didn't even think about it. She's like, do you know what I do for a living? I'm like, you're Dean Roseman. I'm not really sure. I think that's a trick question. She's like, I'm a teacher. I'm an educator. So when somebody comes to me and says they want to be an educator, like, I'm going to do everything in my power to help them. So I was really fortunate to have both a college coach and an advisor who sort of helped to make this thing a reality, because I made a decision so late in the college process.
And I want to add, I think making the decision in the college process and making it when you're already a working adult is very different. So for those of you who are, going to college, you may go to college thinking you're going to do one thing, and to Donald's point, completely have a switch. And then you get out and you start working and take another switch. And I think that's the beauty about the journey of quote unquote growing up and being an adult and picking a career, is that you don't have to just pick one. You pick the one that works for you in that moment that you're passionate about, and then your passions grow and change as you grow and change. And I think you have to give yourself the liberty to explore all of the options and not limit yourself to that dream you had when you were 2 years old. Your dreams change and they evolve as you expose yourself to more in life. And I think that warrants itself. Like, I went to school as a biology major, switched my career mid-sentence to go to public relations, and graduated with public relations, then went to grad school and got my master's in business. And now I'm modeling. And you're like, what? Student loan debt? Yes, I got it. But then I'm also happy. And I think that's the fulfilling process of it, is don't limit yourself to where you are right now and what your dreams are right now. Fulfill those dreams where you are right now. And then as you grow, you will grow and you will expand, and you'll be better in a position to follow those dreams because you're more mature to handle the areas in which you want to go in.
I think the key word, Mashonda, it's Mashonda, correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I want to make sure I got it right. The key word you used there was evolution. And we evolve as people. Like, I've even though I've spent the majority of my career in a similar space, even that has been an evolution. I think about where I was prior to where I am now. I would say, chasing. My previous job, the goal was to be one of the top 10 high school programs in the country, and we achieved it. And you know what? When I was 30, when I was 35, like, that was what I wanted. When I was 40, that was what I wanted. And then you get to a point where you've gotten that, and that's no longer the thing that feeds your competitive interests and so forth. And so I left at the height of what many people would call a run there. We had just won the 100th game. I had just become the all-time winningest coach in our rivalry, 4 games away from being number 1 overall. And I walked away because I saw the opportunity where I am now. And it felt right and fed my competitive spirit. And it's nowhere near where I was before from a just pure like competitive. The team I coach now couldn't beat the team that I coached 3 years ago. But this is so fulfilling to rebuild a program and to do what I'm doing. So I absolutely, Michonne is correct in that we evolve as people, and who you are and what you want at 25 and who you are and what you want at 45 may be very and vastly different. It could involve something different within the same area or completely different professions. So, and I think people have to allow themselves that opportunity to grow.
Mashana, you said something earlier that I may have heard, but I want to know what you mean by failing forward. Thought that was a very interesting way to describe that experience.
Yes, Ruben. So failing forward, and what I mean by this is success isn't linear. It just isn't. We want to believe that it's linear. And when we look on social media, it appears that it's linear, but you got to think about success and what you see on Instagram or social media are highlight reels. You don't see the downplays of things when they're quote unquote maybe crying at night because they're trying to figure out how things are going to work out. And what I mean by failing forward, so to paint that picture, is you're going to have days when you make mistakes, you don't make the right decisions, you don't, dot the right T or I the way it's supposed to, or cross the right T, but you don't let that hold you down. You have your moment and then you move forward. Otherwise, you'll be staying there and you won't move at all. And that's where you become stagnant and it can play a part in your mental. And that you want to continue to just move forward and know that it's okay to fail. It's okay to miss it. And I think we don't give ourselves enough grace to say that we are going to miss it sometimes, but just know that even if you're in high school right now and you made a C on that test, okay, figure out where you needed to make the corrections, study a little harder and move forward versus not wallowing in that C and then completely going backwards and making D's and F's. You want to continue to move forward and make A's and B's, if that makes sense.
And for you, Donald, what does failing forward look like for you as a coach?
So Ruben, in our profession, particularly the coaching profession, you hear people talk about at the professional and the college level, coaches get hired to get fired. Some of the very best coaches in the country have been in very difficult sets of circumstances. I'll use an example. If anybody's familiar with college football, Nick Saban, who's the head football coach at the University of Alabama. Sorry, are you a fan of somebody else?
Oh no, I'm from the South. I'm SEC. I went to Ole Miss,
okay.
So.
But if you look at the trajectory of his career, right? He was a failed NFL coach. He was also on a staff once upon a time where think about this, both Nick Saban and Bill Belichick coached together with the Cleveland Browns. You know what happened to them in 1995? They were fired, both of them. And Belichick is now widely considered the greatest professional coach, and Coach Saban is considered the greatest college coach. So when you talk about failing forward, sometimes you're going to hit tremendous bumps in the road. You lose a job. It's easy to internalize that as part of your worth. Like maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I don't have the worth. And so, understanding when you go into any profession that you're going to hit bumps in the road, there's going to be failure, but those failures do not determine your ultimate worth. And that you've got to be able to dust yourself off if you hit that bump in the road and pick yourself up and keep on going. So the term she used, failing forward, I think is really fitting in any walk of life, but especially in this coaching profession. You're going to hit bumps in the road. You're going to fail at various times, and you've got to keep your confidence in yourself, believe in yourself to be able to keep on going and succeed ultimately.
What life skills are you guys tapping into in those moments where you may have I don't want to say setback after hearing failing forward, but for lack of better phrasing, like a setback? What do you guys have to tap into in those moments in your fields?
Wow, that's a really good question. And I just want to say, Donald, that was some good stuff. I didn't even think about that. You know, when you get fired from a job, you're like, you think that's the end of the world. And I've been fired from, a job or two. And you do, and you have to not let that affect you because sometimes it's just not a good fit. But in terms of life skills, I think I dig into so many life skills, things, especially when I was growing up, the things that my parents instilled in me from, just being kind. You will be surprised at how just being kind and thoughtful will get you so many more places. I want to not paint the picture that I've always been kind and thoughtful. Mm-mm. I used to have a mouth on me and would go off. Like I'm graced to talk, right? I'm graced to engage with people, but that also same grace was also a curse. I would use my words to not be uplifting. I would use my words to cut people down and don't come for me, especially if I didn't send for you, because it was going to be a showdown. However, with maturity, I've grown a bit, right? And so I've learned that being kind, you can get more with honey than you can with vinegar. Not being around gossip. I didn't understand that when I was growing up, but staying away from it because it always backfires because people will misunderstand what you say and take it the wrong way. So just always stay clear of drama, especially when it comes around talking about other people, because you never know. The same person you talked about 5 years ago could be the same person hiring you 5 years later. So you have to be mindful of that. And I want to keep going because I can have a bunch of lessons, but Donald, you can go ahead.
I would say I think of two things. I mean, she's absolutely right, but I think of two things. One is just being positive, and again, that comes with as part of like being kind, being honest, keeping yourself around the right people, but keeping a positive attitude because it makes you somebody people want to be around, makes you somebody people want to employ, people want to work with, and ultimately as a coach that people want to work for. Like players have to want to play for you as a coach or as a manager or as a supervisor. Like people have to want to come to work. So one is being positive with people. And the other is just having work ethic. You know, I go back all the way. My grandfather, in a lot of ways, was he was my first male role model growing up. And here's a man that wasn't high school educated and yet was an entrepreneur, ran his own business, raised a family of 7. And did it in a way that like people in the neighborhood envied. And here's a guy who didn't have a lot of formal education. And always the lesson he used to leave me with is he would always say, it don't matter who your daddy is. You know, I didn't understand it when you're 12, you're 7 years old. Somebody's like, it don't matter who your daddy is. You just outwork everybody and it won't matter. It won't matter where you started. And I think that's a big thing. Like if you go into an organization or you manage to get an opportunity at a job, come in and work as hard as you possibly can and learn. Like learning is a part of work. So you can't just go in like, oh, I know it all. Because that's really laziness personified. That means I don't want to work harder than I am right now. You know, Mashana said it earlier, right? She's been really successful in her field, and yet still she's like, hey, help me. Like, show me the way. I have questions. Provide me with some guidance. And I think if you can humble yourself in any field to come in to say, hey, I don't have all the answers. I know I want to go to whatever place it is, you know, you've aspired to go to, but I know that I'm going to need help from others. I'm going to have questions along the way, and don't have too much pride to ask those questions. Don't have too much pride to tear yourself, sort of the ego that's inside of you tear through that to say, hey, I'm not sure today, or I need help today, or I want more today. Feed me more, give me more. So I think that's part of it, just a positive attitude and a work ethic that's just relentless.
So I just want to clear the air Donald, you're not a Bama fan though, right? That was earlier. That was just a reference, right? Because we know Hugh Freeze is like the best college coach ever.
You just said you're an Ole Miss person, right?
Yes.
The leading tackler at the University of Mississippi right now, Ole Miss, is a young man named Chance Campbell. I coached him. I'm his high school coach. He's number
small
44.
world. See, we love that. So there we go.
University of Maryland, and guess what? He failed forward. He left Maryland and went to Ole Miss. He's going to end up being an NFL draft pick. So
look at that. We love to see it.
I'm a fan of kids. How about that? I'm a fan of young people.
Okay, I'll take that. That's a good spin on it. So guys, can you tell me what's one of your favorite things about what you do?
I'll start right where I just finished, changing lives. I get the opportunity to encounter people, and this is both players and coaches, families even. I get the opportunity to encounter people at a stage in their development where like I can be influential enough to change their life. So whether it's a young person gaining access to an education because of the use of a sport, whether it's a young coach cutting his teeth, like a lot of, I talked to you about Chance. I've got 2 young people who played for me who are coaching in the NFL right now. And I provided both of them with their first job. Like they played for me and then they said, I want to get into coaching. So I said, come on back. I'm going to help you build your resume. Because the one thing people talk about is experience. And if you don't have experience, how can you get hired? Right? It's like, well, you won't hire me because I don't have experience. Well, who's going to give me the experience? So, building people up in that way. And I think the last piece is tearing down stereotypes. Being a young Black male from the environment that I'm from, and ascending into the position where, like, I coach at a school where the president of the United States sends their children, and being a young guy from East Baltimore, and who is really helping to shape America's future. I don't think that's a likely story. That anybody could have just like imagined that initially, like when I was a kid. So I think those are probably the things.
Those are so good. Can you repeat the question again?
Yeah. So what's your favorite thing about what you do?
Okay. I think for me, it's twofold because I'm in both industries. From the modeling perspective, of course, it's being able to try on great clothes and playing dress up, people doing your hair, doing your makeup. I mean, that's a woman's dream, right? To be able to have the luxury of doing those things. But on the opposite end, in terms of in the triathlon world, for me, it's kind of going back to what Donald said about making a difference. I grew up being a swimmer, and a lot of people of color don't swim. And so me starting Try Beginner's Luck it's twofold. It's to basically get people the option to know that they can try and not at any age. For me, I started doing triathlons as an adult, but I want to get people into it younger so that they can have the same experience of life-changing experience that I did. Like triathlon saved my life. It changed my life. And who knew that because one person introduced me to the field when I was working at Turner Sports, that I would now be an announcer in this field, that I would, be hosting certain events in this field and starting my own podcast. So I think for me, it's about helping people, changing them and letting them know that your life can be changed if you want it to be, and just step out and giving it your best shot.
And what advice do you guys have for students with disabilities that are interested in your career paths?
I would say just do it. Don't allow your disability to hinder you, because you don't know how you can be a blessing to your industry. And I think oftentimes, which is why I'm grateful for a lot of the DEIA efforts, and that's diversity, equity, inclusion, and access efforts, is because we don't need to think, again, linearly about who can do a certain job. Just because I may think differently doesn't mean I'm not smart. It just means I think differently. And I need an opportunity to be able to be in an environment where I can learn differently or I can produce for my job differently. And I think employers should be able to allow that to happen. So I would just say, get out there and do it, and don't allow what makes you different to hold you back, but allow what makes you different to set you up for the greatest success, because you are different, and that means you're special.
I echo those thoughts. I think as you watch our world evolve, businesses are certainly also evolving and understanding that both unique and diverse processes of thought make business better. Like whatever organization you have, understanding that it is better with a diverse set of ideas, a diverse set of way of thinking, way of doing things. So as I think as an individual, right, whomever I happen to be, so that's anybody that's listening, whatever it is that this world has told you about what you can't do, like, understand what's being said, right? If you can understand what's being said about you, but not succumb to it, like, then you become the master of that, right? It's not, you haven't allowed it to control you. So whatever shortcomings, whatever things you have, I mean, an athlete has to use it. I'm an athlete and I'm shorter, or I'm not as fast as some of my competitors, or whatever. What are the things that I need to do to compensate for it? And what are my gifts? I can't focus on the things that I don't have. If I'm a basketball player and I'm not 7 feet tall, I can't get 7 feet tall, right? And I can't focus on the fact that I'm not. What I focus on is, what do I have? Is quickness, is being the best conditioned athlete on the field. Is that my advantage? So if you're a person who has what the world might consider a disability, you're born with something really special about you that makes, whether it's a tremendous memory, a great attitude, crazy work ethic, like whatever it is that you're gifted with, take that gift and run with it. And don't let whatever things that this world is saying happen to be shortcomings, like, don't let those define you. Don't be defined by that at all.
I want to get into some questions that the students are asking in the chat, because they are doing a great job at asking. I want to know, because I saw here that you, Mashonda, interviewed the first professional African-American woman triathlete. I want to know, what's a career highlight for both of you?
I'm still living, and I'm still, like, I'm so new. I don't know if I technically have a highlight, but I will say that this year has been, the podcast for me has been a highlight. It was a dream and a vision in December of last year. And we're in the 7th episode as of, what's today? Thursday? Yesterday. So Wednesday, we released our 7th episode. And I think for me, it's just seeing something that was a thought come to fruition. And to someone had a question about, do you need money to make money? With no money and no sponsors and no support, but to see that people are willing to help you along the way because they believe in your vision. To me, that's been the highlight thus far. And in terms on the modeling side, I think the highlight is seeing yourself randomly in places that you wouldn't imagine. Like whenever I'm going to read an article, I see a little ad come up and I'm like, oh, that's you. Hey, girl, hey. So I think those are kind of the highlights. And, my parents being able to see me and to not even know that this was a dream of mine, because they sent me to school to, do business and to do work, and to see now that they're getting on board with it, now that they're being able to see the fruit of their quote unquote labor, I think that's kind of a highlight as well.
I don't know that I have one in particular. I'm going to try to give you something like Mashonda did while also answering some of the questions in the chat. I saw a lot of people asked about, how do you get into coaching? What are some of the hardest things about it, and so forth. And I would say really the highlight or thing I'm most proud of in my career is, number one, for myself, fighting through some of that difficulty. Like being a person that I didn't have a dad that was a coach. I didn't play professional sports. All of the things that make it a little bit easier road in. If I was a Hall of Fame player, everybody be like Deion Sanders, everybody be wanting to hire me, right? Because I'm marketable, I'm an easy name, and so forth. And not everybody's going to go into the business already being set up with that. So that's been one sort of highlight, that I've been able to achieve some things without being a person that, like, I had a platform before I got here. And the second has to do with raising up coaches. So when you talk about, like, how do I break into the industry? How long does it take? You know what? Everybody's journey is unique. Somebody might like catch on and get their break in 3 years, 5 years. You might be 20 years as an assistant before you get a huge break. And what it is finding a space that you love, that you can get up every single morning and, like, man, I just love doing this. Like, and it can't just be about, I always talk to young coaches about, like, not thinking about your next job. Guys will get a job and it'll be like, all right, now I got to go. I was here. Now I got to get to there. I'm here and I got to get to there. And it's like, be where you are, because there are people dependent on you where you are. Love them up, work hard on their behalf, and enjoy today. And then that may give birth to your next opportunity, which may create the next opportunity, but never focus on, like, there's nothing wrong with having a plan, but when you get up every day, like, go to exactly, be where your feet are, right? You've got people in front of you who need your effort and your love, your enthusiasm. Like, be there with those people every day. So I hope that answered a little bit of some of the questions that people had about coaching and getting into it. Some of it is using that network, and I saw that in there. Network with people. You make a relationship, build a relationship, keep it. I absolutely plan to speak to Mashonda when we are finished today. Like, that is no doubt. Like, I plan on having a conversation with you when we finish today, because you may be in some way a person who, we could build and do something beyond just today. So networking is really important.
And I just want to add to what you were saying in terms of being the first and not having people in your family to do it before you. You got to realize that some of you will be the first to do something. And so it's going to be a little harder. I'm experiencing that now. And so, but don't think that just because it's taking you longer that it won't happen. Just trust and believe that the process, that, hey, I'm doing something groundbreaking, and, I'm the first in my family to do this. So you take that mindset with you and know that when you do make it, you can then, like Donald says, coach up other people, bring other people behind you, and pay that forward so that other people can have an opportunity as well.
I saw a question in the in the chat asking about social media as a career. I'm looking at you, Mashonda. What's your thoughts on that question?
I think absolutely. There's always going to be social media from here until it blacks out again, like it did earlier this year. I mean, so you will have an opportunity to make space in social media. You have to just determine what you want to do. Like, do you want to be an influencer? Do you want to be a digital marketer? Do you want to be the person that's controlling SEOs and making sure you're on the back end of it? But I think absolutely social media is here to stay.
And I want to go back and touch back on the networking aspect. While we are aware that it is vital, can you guys describe some strategies you've used? Because I know for me personally, networking is something that I can't just turn on and off. Like, I have to really vibe or really enjoy the person to really have that conversation. I can't just naturally go and work a room. I'm in the corner shaking in the room. So can you guys give some tips on how one, like me, it could get better at networking?
Yeah, I'll start, because I think it's twofold. So you talked about networking, correct? And then on top of that, we talk about social media. Mashonda, I will tell you something. Up until like 2 years ago, I was like the anti-social media person. Like, I see nothing good about it. All this negative energy, all this stuff. And I began to understand, again, it's about evolving. That, you know what, if I'm going to evolve, if I'm going to rebuild or repurpose my own brand, then that's one of the things I need to do is live in the social media space. So like my Instagram now is like, I wouldn't call it popping because like I don't got it like that. But for a dude who a couple years ago was anti-social media, to be able to be doing the things that I'm doing right now, you know, and I think that's a part of it. That's one of the beauties of social media is you get the control of sort of what it is about you or about what you do or about the organization you're with or a part of. You can control sort of the message, the narrative there. So that's a part of one of the really positive things. And not everybody is built, Ruben, to work the room. You know, that's not everybody's built to work the room. However, if you're in the room and you have those same, you know, the ability to see who's where or hear who's where and so forth, like who are the movers, who are the shakers, and maybe you don't get the FaceTime or you don't have the personality to like, hey, how you doing? I'm Ruben or I'm Donald. Man, I heard about this, that, and the other or whatever. Number one is there's no harm in trying, going out of your comfort zone. And two is that's why we have social media, email, all those other things. Hey, I had the opportunity to meet you at such and such. We didn't have a chance to talk. There was a million people around, but I feel a little more comfortable. Not going to tell you that I feel a little more comfortable writing it to you, but I do. And thus I'm going to write to you. So, you know, dropping an email. I heard about guys, Cleveland Browns as a running back a couple weeks ago, a kid who was like, you know, working for UPS, I think 2 months ago. And now he's playing running back in the NFL. And you know what he did? He sent a letter to all 32 teams to say, hey, I'm still trying to live this dream. If you have any way that there's a tryout or anything, just send me a date. I'll show up. I'll find a plane ticket, get my car or whatever. So, and maybe he doesn't have the personality to walk up to an owner and say, hey, I'm going to be your guy in the future. But you know what? He can send an email. He can drop somebody a message, a DM on Twitter, or send somebody something on Instagram to say, hey, here's my information. Here's my highlight film. Here's my resume. Take a look if you have a minute. So I think we're all wired differently. Go ahead, Mashonda. I'm sorry.
No, I agree. We are wired differently. For me, I struggle with networking because I feel sometimes networking can be so pretentious. However, if you show up authentically who you are and you work the room the way you can work the room, that's going to be more impactful than trying to get to know everybody in the room. I would say identify one or two people that you want to talk to. Quick, do a Google search. If you don't know their name, if they have name tags on, look at the name tags. If you're familiar with their face, Google them really quick, but come to the conversation with something so that it makes it easier, more of a like an icebreaker of sorts, saying, hey, I saw you did this article on this page about whatever topic it could be, listening to music with beats and trying to help students learn. And I wanted to know more information about that. And you just literally slide and talk to them. The other thing I'm learning to do is slide in people's DMs. It's an easy way to connect with people and you don't have to go through the backlash, especially when I'm trying to get interviews. So I'm like, hey, I don't have a connection for you, but do you mind being on my interview? Here's a link to the podcast where you can hear more information about it. And then one of your instructors, Becky, this woman knows everybody, or Miss Rebecca, Dr. Rebecca, excuse me. She knows everybody. And I was having some issues and I was like, hey, I need to talk to this person. We did a little search and through social media and we found out that we had mutual friends. She sent that person a message. So that's another way to do it. If you don't feel comfortable talking about or talking to that person, find out who you have in common and get that person to introduce you, because there's multiple ways to skin a cat and you don't always have to work a room, but definitely go in the room and smile because you want them to at least remember your presence.
I like that, multiple ways to skin a cat. So we have like 5 minutes left in this panel, and you guys have done an amazing job. I love how you guys have evolved the conversation. I want to know, because you guys I feel like you guys have good mantras that you like have day to day, but what could you leave our students with?
You want to think on it? You want me to answer? I think a couple things, and some of them are going to answer the questions in the chat, right? I saw some people ask about money and hey, this job or that job doesn't really pay enough. I think if you go into something you love, you cannot go into it with the thought process initially that the money's got to be everything, because that's not love, like a passion for what you're doing. Like if I told you what my first coaching job paid me, you might be like, what? And when was that? That was in the last 20 years. That wasn't 75 years ago. So understand that when you go into something, that it is your passion you carry into it. Like, yes, you want to make enough money to feed yourself, but you know what? If the passion doesn't provide enough, maybe you got to get a night job in the beginning. You know, maybe you work in security, maybe you work in the Rite Aid overnight, maybe you're doing whatever that helps you get through in the beginning. I think if there is something you want and you are passionate about, like, don't let anything stop you. You know, if that's the thing you want to do. People talked about a plan B. That was one of the other questions. It's like, hey, if you're going into sports, like, what's your plan B? The plan B is understanding that you can do a lot of things. Like, I may go into it wanting to own the San Francisco 49ers, right? Or I may go into it wanting to be their quarterback and understanding that, okay, maybe I'm never going to be the quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers or Dallas Cowboys, but there's a million other jobs in athletics that I can do that still will be fulfilling, that'll help me. Maybe I want to be an agent and I represent 10 quarterbacks. Now I'm the quarterback of 10 different teams, right? So understanding that when you go into something, the one job that you may be looking for may not be like, that may not be in the cards, but there's a lot of different things. When you talk about a plan B, maybe it's just, you know, plan A1, plan A5 or whatever. But yeah, that's it. Be passionate, go after it, and just be flexible, be willing to really, really, really hunker down and grind.
See, that's why he's a coach. He has all of the great sayings, and it just helped me. It made my life a lot easier. I would definitely piggyback on the do what you love. If you do what you love, you won't work a day. And I didn't understand that until I see a lot of my friends. Now, they may have a lot more money than I do, but in terms of the peace and the happiness and the quality of life, it is a little bit different. And I just say, follow your dreams. You know, if you have a dream and you believe in you, which is the other one, don't count on other people to believe in you. Don't count on other people to support you. You got to believe in you. And that probably wasn't correct English, but you have to. So just remember that, you know, believe in you. And I would say the last part is love yourself. I think a lot of times if you love yourself, you'll wake up in the morning and what you do will always be generated in love because you will love others. And I think if we come from a place of love, then we can move throughout the world and we can do whatever it is that we want to do and we will always be successful.
Thank you guys so much for this amazing panel. You both were on fire. And I definitely have a lot of takeaways from it. And I'm sure I can say that for the attendees as well. Always a pleasure. Mashonda, thank you so much for joining us, Coach Davis. And yeah.
Thank you so much for having us. And you guys go out and be rock stars.
Right?
And Coach Donald, let's definitely connect.
For sure, for sure. Look, I feel like I want to answer some of these questions because there was a couple of them left, and I saw somebody like, what about my question? I like want to stay answer them.
Let's see.
I see a question. Have you had experience international marketing?
Scratch our head. You know, international marketing, I would say yes. I mean, my podcast is now international and I'm having to figure out how to market it internationally, but no, international marketing, not direct hands-on experience, but indirect experience, yes.
The answer is yes here too. I flew with a group of American coaches to Korea. The football's taken me across the world to grow the game. So, and that came from networking, understanding, hey, I met somebody And they provided me with an opportunity with the NFL to say, hey, you know what, we're going to fly a group of guys to Korea to show kids in Korea the game of football. We're gonna land on some American military bases, and there's kids of families who are living over there who like yearn for American football, but it's not really as readily available over here. So we're gonna run some football camps for them. So I think marketing yourself. The world has gotten smaller because of social media. And, Mashana just said it, her podcast is accessible anywhere where there's internet. And so, having those opportunities, I think, are huge. I think this world, anybody is available to you if you make them available.
Someone just put in there, Erica Thomas is late. Yes, Miss Erica, I am the Mashonda from QVC. And thank you for being a fan. And I thank you for watching.
Go ahead, being famous.
Right. Wow, that's a like, I didn't expect you guys to have like narratives or a response to the international marketing one. That's so fascinating to hear that experience, Coach David. And I don't think there are any more that we haven't touched on. So with that in mind, again, thank you guys for joining us. And until next time, I'll talk with you guys then.
Thank you.